We just finished talking about mitosis, which is the type of cell division that's used in asexual reproduction. So let's just compare asexual and sexual reproduction. So in asexual reproduction, you only just need one parent. And the offspring that are produced are genetically identical to each other and to the parents. So clones are being produced. And the reason that an organism might choose to reproduce asexually is that it can produce lots of offspring in a short amount of time, and it takes less time and less energy than sexual reproduction does. And that's because you don't need to find a mate, which takes a lot more time and more energy to find a mate. So there are some eukaryotes that can reproduce asexually using mitosis. So like we talked about the aspen trees, and then here are some yeast cells that are also reproducing asexually. And then prokaryotes also reproduce asexually using a different form of cell division called binary fission, which is actually simpler than mitosis. Okay, and then we have sexual reproduction. And in sexual reproduction, this is using meiosis. And in meiosis, we're going to be using the gametes, so the egg and the sperm, and we need two parents to do sexual reproduction. And the offspring that are produced are not genetically identical to each other or to the parents. So there is genetic variation, which is the reason that sexual reproduction is used by some organisms. So you can see, like on this family over here, you've got the two parents, and you can see that neither of their daughters is exactly like the mom, and neither of the daughters are genetically identical to each other. And you probably see that in your own family, looking at your own siblings and your parents. So it's probably good that you're not genetically identical to your parents or to your siblings. We do have some disadvantages for sexual reproduction. It does take more time and it costs more energy to do sexual reproduction, and that's because it takes more time and it takes more energy because you need to find a mate. And then this is a pretty cool picture on the bottom here. This is actually a human egg cell. And then you can see all of the sperm cells here that are trying to fertilize it. So you can see there's a really huge size difference between a human egg cell and then the sperm cells. So that's kind of a cool picture. Okay, another important thing to know is that we've got different numbers of chromosomes in our human cells. We've got haploid cells, which are the gametes. The egg and the sperm are going to be haploid. And so they only have one set of chromosomes. So they only have one copy of each chromosome. And then all of our somatic cells, so all of the other cells besides the gametes, are going to be diploid, which just means that they have two sets of chromosomes. So this means that they're going to have two copies of each chromosome. So that's what diploid means. Okay, so our somatic cells are going to be diploid, and so they have 46 chromosomes, or they have two sets of 23 chromosomes. So that just means that if you're looking at like a skin cell or a heart cell, liver cell, whatever, they would each have 46 chromosomes, and 23 of the chromosomes came from your mom, and 23 of the chromosomes came from your dad. And we also have this term called homologous chromosomes. So in those diploid cells, the two chromosomes that make up a pair are called homologous chromosomes. So one of the pair of the chromosomes came from your mom and the other chromosome came from your dad. And they will carry genes that control the same traits. And these homologous chromosomes will be similar in length and shape, but they're not exactly identical. So let's just look at a picture of homologous pair of chromosomes. So here we've got a homologous pair of chromosomes. So this blue chromosome came from your dad, and this red chromosome came from your mom. So maybe these are both chromosome number 2 in your cell. And you can see that they are similar to each other, but they're not exactly identical. So you can see that maybe for the eye color gene, you've got a big A for that eye color gene from your dad that you've inherited, but from your mom, you've inherited the little a gene. So maybe you've inherited maybe the brown color eye color gene from dad, and maybe you inherited the blue eye color gene from mom. Okay, so you can see that these homologous chromosomes, they do carry genes that are coding for eye color, but they could have different traits that they're going to be coding for. So maybe one is coding for brown eye color and the other is coding for blue eye color. Okay, here's a karyotype, and this is where they can actually take a sample from cells in your body, and they can actually line up the homologous pairs of chromosomes. So you see you've got 23 pairs of homologous chromosomes, which equals 46 chromosomes total. And so looking at this one homologous pair of chromosomes for chromosome number 1, you can see you've inherited one of the homologous pairs from your dad and one from your mom. And so you can kind of look through here, and we've got 22 pairs of homologous chromosomes, and then there's one pair here that are sex chromosomes. So you can see that this person has an X and a Y chromosome, so that would make this a male. And if they had 2 X chromosomes, that would be a female. Okay, and then our haploid cells, these would be the gametes. So they're just going to have only one copy of each chromosome. So they're only going to have 23 chromosomes. So an egg would contain 23 chromosomes, and a sperm would contain 23 chromosomes. And these gametes are going to be produced by germline cells in the gonads, the ovaries and testes, by meiosis. So here's just the human life cycle. We've got the adults here, and remember that the adults, all of their somatic cells here, all of them except for the eggs and sperm, are going to be diploids, so they will all have 46 chromosomes. And then the egg and the sperm that they produce will have half that number, because those cells are going to be produced by meiosis, and meiosis will cut the number of chromosomes in half. So this sperm will have 23 chromosomes, and then this egg will have 23 chromosomes, which is good because when the sperm fertilizes the egg, we get this fertilized zygote, and a zygote is just a fertilized egg. Okay, and that becomes your embryo. And so this zygote will now have 46 chromosomes again. And it will be diploid again. And then this zygote, this fertilized egg, this embryo, will now divide by mitosis and produce cells that are clones of each other, and divide lots and lots of times, because the adult humans, we have hundreds of trillions of cells. And so to produce all those cells, you got to divide a lot of times by mitosis to grow from the zygote, the fertilized egg, into the adult. Okay, so for meiosis, just kind of an overview here. Meiosis is only used in sexual reproduction, and that is just in our eukaryotes. So prokaryotes do not do sexual reproduction, so they will not use meiosis. And remember that meiosis is only going to occur in the gonads, only in the ovaries and testes, so because that's just where the gametes are made, the eggs and the sperm. And so when we do meiosis, we're going to start with a diploid cell with 46 chromosomes, and it's actually going to divide twice. And so we end up producing 4 haploid daughter cells. Each of these will have 23 chromosomes. And so each of these gametes will contain half the number of chromosomes in the parent cell we started off with. So we start with a cell with 46 chromosomes, and the gametes will each end up with 23 chromosomes. And the other thing that's really important is that these gametes are not going to be genetically identical to each other or to the parent cell. So we're going to end up with genetic variation, and that's the whole benefit of doing sexual reproduction and meiosis, is you get this genetic variation.